Well, here we are. There is just a little bit of the world of Sekiro left for us to explore, and we are going to do it just as thoroughly. Today we'll take a look at both Ministry invasions and all the endings. We'll look at environmental art, character art, and even dive a little bit deeper into the history of real Sengoku period to see if it helps us gain a better understanding of the events unfolding after we receive the gracious gift of tears. Please note that we have already discussed all major endgame bosses in their respective Remnants videos, so I won't repeat what we already know. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. If it's not the first time around, feel free to skip ahead. Number 1, use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My lore theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2, I'm not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. Number 3, I am not an expert on Buddhism or Shinto. I will leave links to the religious terms that we will encounter so you can read more on your own if you're interested. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules, and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find a link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. The first invasion happens when Wolf acquires all Fountainhead aroma ingredients, Shelter Stone, Lotus of the Palace, and the Mortal Blade. After that, all Ashina Castle idols go dark, except for the abandoned dungeon idol through which we are able to return. There we can eavesdrop on a soldier who's confused why nobody is coming even though his shift has already ended. We'll cover the Ministry and Akazonae Troops in the second invasion. For now, let's go and reclaim Ashina Castle idols. In the Serpent Shrine, we meet yet another elite Ministry agent, Lone Shadow Masanaga the Spear-bearer, who doesn't wield a spear. His original name is Lone Figure Masanaga the Spear-leg. This metaphor is supposed to hint at him using his leg as a spear. If we eavesdrop on him, we'll learn that the other Ministry shinobi killed by Tengu is Masanari. We'll meet him a little bit later when we go back in time. Masanaga uses the forbidden Yashariku sugar, which proves that the Senpo Temple has been supplying the Ministry with them in exchange for substantial donations. The most interesting thing in this encounter is that from Masanari's body we take Dragon's Blood Droplet, and we know all too well that this item is not just a piece of random loot. Why does Masanari have it? On the castle roofs we meet shinobi like those from the Senpo Temple, dressed in red Akazonae colors with the Ministry crest on the chest. The nightjar bodies are scattered nearby. In the castle atrium there is one more chained ogre. It's always been curious to me that the ogres are blonde. These are probably foreign merchants that arrived during Nanban trade and were captured to be experimented on. Under Ishin's solitary room we can witness a nightjar shinobi battling an interior Ministry shinobi. It's quite a sight. Ishin upstairs is not feeling well, but he keeps his spirits high. Outside of his room we can finally take the Black Scroll. Another lone shadow, this time in Ashina Dojo. His original name is very curious. It's Lone Figure Forbidden Hand. The imi part denotes something that is taboo or something that is unlucky or needs to be avoided in general. A very fitting name. After defeating him, we come across a dying nightjar shinobi on the roof who tells us that Kuro and Emma are being targeted and asks us to protect them. Unable to cope with the fact that he had to ask Wolf for help, he dies. He also drops 2 lumps of fat wax. As we climb the Ashina Castle lookout tower, we witness Owl trying to persuade Kuro to go with him. We have discussed Owl and his final dialogue with Wolf that was lost in translation in Remnants. Instead of repeating what we already know, let's look at his character art. Owl is an exceptionally gigantic human, which I think is just meant to convey his power. How he is able to act as a shinobi when his towering figure eclipses the sun is a mystery to me. On every single character art except for just one, Owl is depicted with a spirit owl. The similarity in their appearances cannot be denied. The bird's left eye is smaller and more sunken, making its expression asymmetrical, and the same can be said about Owl himself, although it is his right eye that makes his face melt to the side a little. The similarity, I think, is meant to further prove that whatever nushi or god you worship, in time you will become like that god, even if a little bit. In an early concept art, he is depicted yet again with the spirit owl. The bird looks a bit different, and there is a weird round something at the center of its body. I have no clue what it's supposed to be. Owl wears a piece of wood around his neck. The wood has markings like an inscription of some sort, but I honestly do not know what these markings are. If you do, please let me know. I wonder if it is an omamori of some kind. Interestingly, when he charges at Wolf in the cutscene, he is attempting Kageotoshi, a shinobi technique that he used to kill Wolf in Hirata estate. When Wolf reacts, Owl concludes that he became more skilled since that time in the estate, because then he didn't notice anything and, well, died. In this fight, Owl uses a lot of tricks to try and take advantage of Wolf, such as poison and smoke, which I think shows that he is not at his prime anymore and he cannot rely just on his sword skills. If you decide to betray Kuro, you'll get Shura Ending. Its original name is pretty straightforward, Shura. We have already discussed both Shin and Emma as bosses. Funnily enough, this is the only ending the art book completely ignores in terms of character art, so unfortunately there are no pictures of bloodthirsty wolf wielding two mortal blades. After we defeat Owl, there is a whole bunch of dialogue and running back and forth between Kuro, Emma, and Shin. As a result of all that labor, we get Owl's Omamori Bell that helps us travel back in time to face Owl in his prime in the Hidden Temple. This is a part of the Purification ending. In the altered Hirata estate, we meet yet again Lone Shadow Masanaga the Spear Bearer and his shinobi hounds. Masanari, still alive, is not very far. He's in front of the main gates talking to Juzo the drunkard. You can actually eavesdrop on them, which I didn't know about. Masanari tells Juzo how easy it was to take Hirata estate because of the information that Owl provided. Juzo, however, is not quick to trust Owl and tells Masanari that Owl is an outright villain. The drunkard had some incredibly accurate gut feeling, as it turns out. As for Masanari, he will live a few more years before being killed by the Tengu in the Serpent Shrine. I think he got the dragon's blood droplet here in Hirata estate during the assault. It was Kuro's home after all, so there must have been some dragon heritage pieces lying around. Fun fact, the big Buddha in the burning temple is actually the same 11-faced Kannon that sends us back in time from the dilapidated temple. It makes perfect sense that these 2 points in time would be connected through the same Buddha, doesn't it? Foster Father is definitely among my favorite boss fights. I love that he also uses shinobi tech like shuriken and firecrackers. I think it makes the fight much more exciting. After defeating him, we get Aromatic Flower and open the possibility of the Purification ending. When we come back from the Divine Realm, having received the gracious gift of tears, we discover that the Ashina Castle is being purged by the Interior Ministry and Akazonae Troops. The tension that we've seen building from the start of the game finally erupted. But what even is Interior Ministry? To figure out what Interior Ministry even is in Sekiro, let's discuss the real Sengoku period. It is often called Warring States period, named so after a similar Chinese era, but some scholars disagree with the title because Japan was still intact, at least nominally. The emperor and shogunate still ruled the country. Sengoku period started in 1467 when a civil war called Ōnin War broke out. It began as a succession dispute over who would succeed Ashikaga Yoshimasa, who at the time was the shogun of the Ashikaga, or alternatively Muromachi shogunate. He abdicated his position but didn't have an heir, so he convinced his younger brother Yoshimi to abandon his life as a monk and instead be the next shogun, succeeding him gradually over the next few years. A year after that, unexpectedly, Yoshimasa's son was born, named Yoshihisa. His mother and shogun's official wife, Hinotomiko, hailed from a powerful family, the women of which became consorts to many previous shoguns. After she became shogun's wife, her family grew even more powerful and she had great influence over the shogunate court. Of course, she wanted to make sure that the next shogun would come from her lineage and insisted on naming their son the successor. These events led to Ōnin War that lasted 10 years. Both sides found political and military support and absolutely devastated the city of Kyoto. However, there was no clear winner in this war. Both armies just fought until they were completely exhausted. The battles of Kyoto were over, but the war had spread beyond the city walls. Other clans suddenly found themselves in succession disputes too. Conflicts similar to Ōnin War ignited on a smaller scale throughout the country. The peasantry and lesser samurai revolted in response to the Hatakeyama clan being split in two by such a dispute. It led to the formation of a confederacy inside Japan. There were also rebellious groups of people called Ikoiki, led by the power of the true Pure Land Buddhism sect. They defied the rule of governors and daimyo. A ceaseless civil war engulfed Japan. During the Ōnin War, the Ashikaga shogunate wasn't really doing much to alleviate the situation or to stop the war, even though it broke out because of the shogun's succession issue. The fact that this local conflict spilled over and had such a powerful ripple effect is mainly attributed to the shogunate's inability to exert enough power and influence over the warring parties and just being complacent. After the war, the Ashikaga shogunate lost its power, and in 1573 it fell apart completely. Oda Nobunaga, whom you've probably heard of, was an ambitious daimyo and the head of the very powerful Oda clan, who firstly installed his puppet as the Ashikaga shogun and later drove him out, seizing power. He is known as the first unifier of Japan. He defeated the rebels and conquered most of the Honshu island. In 1582, one of his vassals rebelled against him, and Oda Nobunaga was forced to commit seppuku. His mantle was picked up by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who was one of the Nobunaga's most trusted generals. Fun fact, Yamauchi Tenzen, one of the Ashina generals, has a faded Toyotomi clan crest on his back, underneath the Hirata clan sigil. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the second great unifier of Japan, died in 1598. He was to be succeeded by his young son. However, another prominent general and Nobunaga's former retainer, Tokugawa Ieyasu, seized power in the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 and was declared shogun soon after. He completed the unification of Japan and founded the Tokugawa shogunate in 1603. Some scholars consider the establishment of the new regime to be the end of the Sengoku period. Others push it a little bit further to 1615, when Tokugawa shogunate destroyed the rest of the rebellious Toyotomi clan and their loyalists during the siege of Osaka. So where do we place the events of Sekiro in all of this? Of course, the game never mentions any of these people. It never mentions any kind of authority, whether a shogun or an emperor. But if we look closely at the Interior Ministry crest, we'll see that it is a modified crest of the Tokugawa clan. Interior Ministry, Naifu, is essentially a shogunate agent sent to destroy the Ashina rebels because they worship the weird waters that make them stronger. By the way, the central forces that characters sometimes mention in dialogues are also Naifu, the Interior Ministry. It's just a localization inconsistency. Sometimes Naifu no Gun is translated as Interior Ministry's army, and sometimes it's Central Forces. In Japanese, it's all the same thing. Warriors in bright red armor that are part of the Interior Ministry forces are called Akazonae. The history of these elite troops is very interesting. Let's see where they come from. Akazonae were a military unit during the Sengoku period. They were a part of Irozanaya, colored arms, the warriors of which wore a single color and had banners of that color. Akazonae's color, which is evident from their name, was red. At the time, red color was derived from cinnabar, and it wasn't cheap, so wearing red elevated them as an elite military group. Akazonae were led by a Busho, an outstanding commander, in Sekiro's Shigekichi. Initially, Akazonae were a part of the Takeda clan that ruled Kai province during the Sengoku period. However, Takeda clan was defeated by the allied forces of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Old retainers of the Takeda family, including those who supported the Akazonae unit, were allotted to Ii Naomasa, one of Tokugawa Ieyasu's most trusted generals. Naomasa formed his own Akazonae troop dressed in red, and these warriors led the vanguard in upcoming battles and were feared. They were also nicknamed Akaoni, or Red Demons. There were other Akazonae troops, for example Sanada's Akazonae, but they are not as relevant to our discussion. I think this bit of history proves that the Interior Ministry forces are indeed shogunate forces. The Red Akazonae troops are not random at all. At the time, they were already a part of the Tokugawa army. We learn from Emma that as Shin has passed away from his illness, the castle is being overrun by Interior Ministry forces, and Kuro is waiting for us in the field of Silvergrass, where it all began. She also gives us the secret passage key. The localization is accurate. The last sentence conveys more urgency in Japanese, though. Wolf must follow him. The art book calls it Naifugun Surai, Interior Ministry Army Invasion, or Attack. The view of the burning Ashina Castle is called Ashina Castle Engulfed in Flames. Before flying on the shinobi kite, let's look around. Akazonae troops are fighting Ashina soldiers and Ashina samurai. They're also burning the place down, hoping to purge Ashina heretics with fire. Akazonae soldiers in the art book are named according to the weapons they wield. Soldiers with two long swords are called Nito, literally dual-wielding. The ones with flamethrowers are incendiary device. The ones with two short swords are Kodashi dual-wielding. On the roofs, red-eyed nightjar are fighting regular nightjar. The red-eyed ones upon death drop an alternate version of Bite Down that says that they have betrayed Ashina to ensure their own survival. Terra troop warriors near Ashina Castle are very upset. They are crying their eyes out, covering their faces with their hands. They're like lost kids. Below Ishin's room, there is a red-eyed Ashina elite. In English, his name is Mizuo Uzunari, but in Japanese, he is Mibu Uzunari. The localization efforts were clearly aimed at distancing the character from the Mibu village, while I think the connection is here for a reason, proving once again that there is a Mibu clan in the world of Sekiro. This Ashina elite says something curious. Lord Ishin, I'm borrowing this. Initially, I thought he was talking about Ishin's sword, the one that he has in Shura Ending, but then I remembered that Ishin is still clutching that sword in Dragonair's room, so I'm not entirely sure what this Ashina elite is borrowing in this case. Before going to Kuro, let's make a little detour and visit Ashna Outskirts. Even though an Ashina soldier and the Nightjar ask Wolf to save Ashina and reinforce the troops defending the outskirts, there is no saving anything. The outskirts are burning, Black Badger is dead, Anayama is dead, Inosuke and his mother are too. All banners have been replaced with ministry banners. This is the end. The Tiger's Den, where Yamauchi Tenzen used to be, is now Naifugata no Jin, encampment of the Interior Ministry soldiers. Here we meet the Akazonae leader, Shigekichi of the Akazonae. We have already discussed Demon of Hatred in the corresponding Remnants video. The pose he assumes at the start of the fight appears to be a theatrical kabuki pose. I think he strikes a couple more throughout the fight. I must admit that I have no substantial knowledge about kabuki theater. It is a very complicated area of Japanese art, but if by any chance you are an expert on the topic and recognize the poses, please leave a comment below. A couple of ministry soldiers attempt to hold him by dousing him with fire, but this of course doesn't work. I usually overwhelm him with malcontent, which works very well and also breaks my heart, and hide under Suzaku's umbrella. In second and third phases he casts projectiles, and I assume those to be burning spirit emblems, but turns out these are burning demonic Buddhas that he's been carving in the dilapidated temple. Demon of Hatred drops lapis lazuli, which I don't think can be explained from the story and lore perspective. I think it's purely a gameplay thing. There are actually two endings to this fight. Based on your previous actions, Wolf either recognizes Demon of Hatred as the sculptor or he doesn't. It changes his dialogue during the final death blow, and also Shura narrator's dialogue after the battle is over. About her, regardless of whether or not Wolf recognized the sculptor, she finishes her dialogue with this: "You have your duties. Things you must accomplish, yes?" This single line, in my opinion, proves that she is a sort of omnipresent narrator who knows everything and serves as a guide, albeit reluctant, for a part of the story. The thing is that Wolf's signature phrase that he repeats throughout the game is, "I will do what must be done," when he readies himself to fight his former mentor Lady Butterfly, when he kills his foster father on the Ashina Castle lookout tower. Then Kuro picks it up, which is kind of heartbreaking, and then even Emma repeats it on a couple of occasions. This is sort of Wolf's motto that he lives by. There are things that must be done, whatever the cost. All other characters who say this phrase heard it from Wolf first. In Japanese, Shura Maid says, "You have your duties, things that must be done, do you not?" She never heard this phrase from Wolf, so she shouldn't know how much significance it holds, but she does. You can hear it through her voice and the pause that she takes. I think she foreshadows the endings. Whatever you choose to do, whether it's killing Kuro, sacrificing yourself, or embarking on a long journey, there are things that must be done. On our way to Kuro, we meet one more of the seven spears, Oniwa Sume Masaji. Yes, the Oniwa part is written the same way it is in Gyobu's name, so they might be related. This guy is accompanied by an Ashina general. You can eavesdrop on them to learn that they are waiting for Genichiro. They expect him to return with the dragon's heritage so they can revive Ashina. Little do they know that we are also after Genichiro. Honestly, this encounter is probably my favorite moment of storytelling in Sekiro. It mirrors the start of the game so well. There are so many subtle details in this scene. During their first meeting, Kuro was startled by Genichiro. He took a step back and looked to the side because he was afraid of him. Now, even being wounded by the mortal blade, he straightens himself, looks him in the eye, and says that he won't be able to save Ashina. Think about how Wolf hesitated while unsheathing his sword the first time, how he couldn't grasp it firmly. Now this movement is smoother than breath. Previously, it was Wolf who stopped Kuro from approaching Genichiro because he wanted to shield him, and now it is Kuro preventing him from stepping between them with the exact same gesture. I also love how easy it is to just steamroll Genichiro in this fight, quite contrary to the first encounter. It's great when games have moments that show you how far you've come and how much you've learned, and I think this is a perfect example of that. We have already discussed Kensei Ishin in one of the earlier videos. There isn't much I can add, it's just a very fun fight. Ishin wields the Black Mortal Blade, the cross-shaped spear of General Tamura, a firearm that appears to be a Tanegashima pistol, and also lightning. Apparently, not only Genichiro was Tomoe's student back in the day. The only other thing that I noticed is that for some reason Ishin has a scar on his stomach, as if from seppuku. It doesn't really make any sense before you defeat him, but it does after. Wolf cuts Ishin's stomach and then beheads him with the Mortal Blade. I don't think there is any significance beyond that. And now, after we have defeated Kensei Ishin and Wolf kneels beside Kuro, let's talk about all the endings. The first ending is called Fushidachi, Severance of the Immortality. This is the ending that Kuro wants, and also the ending that Takeru wanted. The trophy or achievement you get for this ending depicts Wolf as a bushi. The art book has a few images of him without the prosthetic, carving Buddha images out of wood. This is basically continue the cycle ending where nothing changes. The current heir dies, but there will be a new one eventually. The hatred is still there. Wolf finds no peace. The second ending is Hitogaeri, literally turning back into a human. This is the ending Emma wants for Kuro, and also the ending that Tomoe wanted for Takeru. Wolf sacrifices himself to unbind Kuro. Kuro loses his divine power and becomes human. The trophy depicts him in his traveling attire, as does the art book. He promises Emma to live his life to the fullest before passing on. In my opinion, this ending is much better than Immortal Severance, but it solves only the personal problem of one dragon heir. Kuro lives on as a human, yes, but in the grand scheme of things, nothing has changed, just like in the previous ending. A new dragon heir will appear, and the stagnation will continue getting worse. The last and arguably the true ending is Ryu no Kikyo, Dragon's Homecoming. This is the ending that the Child of Rejuvenation suggests to Wolf. It brings to fruition the Senpo plan to send the dragon back to the west. It also gives closure to the child, since she understands her purpose and fulfills it. The art book depicts her in a traveling attire as she leaves the temple. The trophy picture shows her departing with Wolf, whom she now calls not Shinobi of the Divine Heir, but Shinobi of the Dragon. This is the only ending where we do not perpetuate the cycle but break it, removing the source of the stagnation and immortality and carrying it back where it came from. Even in this fairly simple episode, we managed to find some interesting things to look at. But it was the last one. Our exploration of the world of Sekiro is over. We'll meet once again in the epilogue, where we'll look at what we have discovered during this long research and whether it was worth it at all. And then we'll celebrate. If you have a favorite episode or a favorite bit of any kind, save that comment for the next video. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.